Welcome back to the next video in the series on building resilience or sort of developing your mental toughness. So today I'm going to look at anxiety and then how that impacts your sensory information that comes in, and then how that influences the quality of your information processing and the decisions that you're able to make on the back of that. So when we find ourselves under a lot of pressure or we perceive a lot of threats within our environment, that creates a lot of anxiety, and then from there that creates a lot of internal worrisome thoughts. We start to become over focused on the threats within our environment, because if we can identify all the threats as a very sort of basic survival need, then we can avoid them. But we don't really want to go into avoidance behaviors. It's exactly the opposite of what we want. So we don't want to become fixated on the threat. We want to be able to look for the opportunities that will allow us to get the outcome that we want. But as we've sort of developed over from a primitive evolution standpoint, the threat bias that we have kind of works so that we become fixated on the threats at a very early point. We stay fixated on them, and it's very hard for us to shift our focus or attention from the threats within our environment to the actual task relevant information that we have. So I kind of previously spoke about a period recently where I went through a transition out of defense, transitioned from sport into what I'm doing now. And during that period, we had a lot of financial sort of disruption. So when we look at that from a sort of primitive survival standpoint, any bill that came in from the bank or any letter that came in from the bank, before I even open that, I'm looking at that as a threat. So that could contain information where I have to pay a bill, where there's going to be a negative impact on our financial situation as it is. Any email or letter that came from our builder, any work email, these sort of things, you start to scan it for information that is threatening to you, because become very, very threat biased. And even neutral information, information you would have seen as neutral previously, you see as a threat now, because you just focused on that threat. Okay, so it makes it very difficult to then sift through that information to look for the opportunity. So rather than focusing on negative information that's coming from the bank, from the builder, from all these sort of things, like even if I went online, any headings on there or any sort of sidebars or marketing stuff that talks about a real estate bubble or pressure from the banks or anything that's related to my situation, that's going to draw my focus on that threat rather than sifting through for accurate information. So avoiding those sort of sources, the media, these sort of things, because they're all based on drawing your attention to threat. That's how they work. That's how they make their money. So rather than do that, I looked for the opportunities. So what were the opportunities that I had in my environment? So one of them was digging in and doing my master's, so that then that led to a PhD, which was an opportunity for a later point. We looked at, okay, what opportunities we did where we could buy more time. And we went through this process, and I've spoken about that previously, where through identifying the opportunities and the chances and looking at our resources, we were able to get through it without too much of a problem. So when you're under a lot of pressure, it impacts all these systems. So when you're looking at your visual system, which is what we use a lot, it focuses on threat stimuli. So, and this goes across a number of domains. So in sport, if you're taking a kick at goal, you start to look at the goalie rather than areas of the goal where you want to kick the ball, because that's the threat between you and your outcome, which is a goal. When you're playing against an opposition, you start to look for the threats within that opposition when you're under a lot of pressure rather than the opportunities. Okay? When you look at golfers, they start to look at the threats around their environment rather than looking at where they want things to go. So it changes the way that you're looking at things, the way you're processing information, and that ultimately impacts your decision and your execution of that skill. Okay, and it's kind of how choking works. Even when you're looking at a business environment, if you're under a lot of pressure and an email comes in, you're scanning that email for threats. In your interpersonal interactions, you're scanning the non-verbal communication for threats. You're scanning the verbal communication for threats. You're just looking for more threats. And as soon as you identify what you perceive as a threat, then that's what you focus on. And that's sort of goes and just confirms through confirmatory bias that, yeah, this is a threat. You need to start trying to avoid this situation or be prepared for a conflict, which it may not be the case. In a tactical environment, you start to look for more threats within your environment when you're under a lot of pressure. So you kind of almost misidentifying what's going on, which in those environments can be quite fatal, or there can be catastrophic events from that. So like this is going to happen, but understanding that it's a process, it happens, and that you need to be able to then identify, okay, well, I'm under pressure, I'm looking for threats, so I can disregard all of that and start changing my focus to look for opportunities. And in sort of a lot of these combat environments, it's considered sort of situational awareness, where once you're at a threat, your awareness really focuses down on that threat. You become very narrow-minded on what you're seeing, where you have to be able to step back, open your awareness, and take in all the information from your surroundings, so that you can then analyze, process what information is available to you, make accurate, informed decisions, and then execute the right task to get the outcome that you want. So within the environment that you're in, if you're under a lot of pressure, you've got to try and get rid of this threatening stimuli, or anything that's creating threatening stimuli or drawing your attention to, and then step back, look for the opportunities within your environment, look for the actual real information, the task relevant cues, where you can then process that information, come to a really good decision, and then start to develop the process of how you're going to solve your problem. And that's just small step after small step to solve your problem. And it's a continual process of take a small step, re-identify the information in front of you, adapt if necessary, take another step. And through that, you'll be able to solve your problems, or you'll be able to mitigate a lot of the issues around you, and make sure that you're in the best possible position you are when you come out the other side of any sort of obstacle, challenge, or problem. So, once you understand that, then you can start to make sure that you're getting the right information, because the power of your decisions, or the accuracy of your decision, is going to be based on the quality of the information that you're getting. And if you just completely fixated on threat, then you're never going to get really good information. That's going to affect your outcome. So if you've got any questions, please feel free to reach out. Otherwise, I hope you're enjoying the series. If you want to get the videos as soon as they come out, please feel free to subscribe or follow any of my social media, and I'll post the links there. Thank you.